know what they say, if you can't join them, beat them with a steel chair. Some of wrestling's biggest ever moments have come courtesy of a good old-fashioned heel turn. Andre the Giant ripping Hulk Hogan's shirt, Steve Austin siding with Vince McMahon, Goldust breaking up the Golden Truth. Wait, how did that one get in there? NXT is no stranger to this phenomenon, and today we are looking at some of the best times wrestlers from developmental went to the dark side. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the 10 biggest heel turns in NXT history. Join us. Number 10, Bron Breakker. The most recent turn on this list took place the night after NXT's Adamant-themed extravaganza Stand and Deliver. The third event under that name went down a treat thanks to the numerous great matches and moments taking place across the show. Wesley retained the North American Championship in a fast-paced 5-way match, Johnny Gargano returned to his spiritual home to exact revenge on Grayson Waller, and who could forget the heartwarming moment where Chase U defeated Schism to save the school. Honestly, just thinking about it now is making me tear up. The night was closed out by an excellent match that saw Carmelo Hayes beat Bron Breakker to become the new NXT champion. On the next episode of NXT, it looked like Breakker was taking his loss well. He congratulated the new champ, raised his hand, and oh wait, he's just clotheslined him. Never mind. Since turning heel, Breakker's character has undergone a much-needed shift. His more aggressive persona is a far cry from the clean-cut babyface he used to be, and it all started with this well-timed switch to the naughty side. Number 9, Io Shirai. Before she almost left WWE, changed her name to Io Sky and added a Y into her first name for no good reason, Io Shirai was one of the most popular women down in NXT. She was engaged in a feud with Shayna Baszler for the NXT Women's Championship, but was constantly thwarted by the champ's buddies Marina Shafir and Jessamine Duke. Never fear though, because Shirai had some huge backup on the way. Well, not huge in terms of height, but you know what I mean. Candice LeRae helped even the odds at TakeOver 25, but this still wasn't enough to give Io the win. A few weeks later, Shirai lost another title match to Baszler, this time in a steel cage. Losing your third straight title match must not feel great, but that's no excuse to attack someone who's trying to help you. Sadly, nobody told Io this because she started leathering LeRae, turning evil in the process. Not only was this a shocking moment at the end of a hard-fought match, but it also set Shirai's character in an interesting new direction. She would beat LeRae at TakeOver Toronto, cementing her status as a baddie. Number 8, El Hijo del Fantasma. One of the many unforeseen issues brought about by the pandemic was that NXT Cruiserweight champion Jordan Devlin was stuck in Ireland and unable to defend his title on the show. NXT worked around this by holding a tournament to crown an interim champion, the finals of which came down to Drake Maverick and El Hijo del Fantasma. The masked Mexican defeated Birmingham's finest to pick up the gold, leading to an in-ring celebration the following week. However, just like my last birthday party, the moment was ruined when two blokes in masks showed up. I still have no idea how they found me. Just as it looked like the two finalists were about to team up, Fantasma turned on Maverick and joined the Luchadors in attacking him. All three men later removed their coverings, unveiling themselves as Legado del Fantasma. Nobody cared that this was disrespecting lucha tradition because look how bloody handsome they are. This turn worked wonders for the newly christened Santos Escobar, as he now had a title and his own stable. It set him up as one of NXT's major players and did so in style. Number 7, Dakota Kai. The first ever women's war game match in WWE history took place at the titular NXT event back in 2019. On one side you had Shayna Baszler, Bianca Belair, Io Shirai and Kaylee Ray. On the other there was Rhea Ripley, Candice LeRae, Tegan Nox and that slimy little rat, Dakota Kai. Maybe I should explain myself. Kai and Nox have been best buds leading up to War Games, with the former even helping the latter when she was out with an injury. Sadly, Kai's jealousy grew too strong, and she snapped. When it was her time to enter the match, the Kiwi star instead started laying waste to her Welsh counterpart. Dakota brutally beat down her former friend's injured leg, taking her and herself out of the match to leave her squad high and dry. The turn was executed perfectly. Nobody saw it coming, it was well justified within storyline and added significant jeopardy to the match. It also birthed a singles feud between Kai and Nox that would blow off in hardcore fashion at the following takeover. So there you go, now you know why I was so angry at Kai earlier. I don't just hate people from New Zealand. Number 6, Johnny Gargano. To be clear, we don't mean that heel turn that led to all the one final beat nonsense in 2020. That was way too much. Instead, we are looking back at when former NXT champion Aleister Black got taken out ahead of his scheduled triple threat bout at TakeOver Brooklyn 4. Who could have done this? Perhaps it was Tomasso Ciampa, the cold-hearted NXT champion who had beaten Black for the belt in the first place. Or it could be his former DIY partner, a man many assumed would never turn to the dark side. On the October 24th, 2018 edition of the show, it was revealed that it was in fact Johnny Wrestling who had assaulted Black in the Big Apple. The future Malachi hit the ring screaming at William Regal to tell him where he was. The he in question turned out to be Gargano, who confirmed his heel turn by planting a super kick right on the Dutchman's chin. Johnny justified his actions by claiming that he was doing what was necessary to get to Ciampa. The delusional heel trope has worked wonders in wrestling in the past, and this was no exception. Number 5, Finn Balor. For the entirety of his first run in NXT, Finn Balor had been presented as an uncompromising, stoic good guy. However, being on WWE's main roster will do strange things to a man. Balor returned to the black and gold on the October 2nd, 2019 episode of the show, which I'm sure had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that it was running head-to-head with AEW Dynamite that week. The Demon King made it seem like he was going after Adam Cole's NXT Championship as a face, but that all changed a few weeks later. During a stare-down between the Undisputed Era and DIY, Balor made his way to the ring to even the odds. Well, almost even them, it was still 3-on-2. Things got even more uneven. Whilst going to take off his jacket, Balor swiftly dropped Gargano with a Pele kick, allowing the Era to mob Ciampa. Balor hadn't joined the heel faction, presumably because he'd never wrestled in Ring of Honor, but he had established himself as the brand's new top cool loner villain. Number 4, Samoa Joe. Speaking of Finn Balor, 4 years before he laid out Johnny Gargano, he himself was on the receiving end of a heel turn beating. The great historical alliance of Ireland and Samoa reared its head in the first ever Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, which was won by the team of Samoa Joe and NXT champion Finn Balor. The champ had promised Joe a title shot if they won the tournament, but like a dad telling his kids he'd take them to the park next week, that promise meant nothing. One go on the swings, that's all I wanted. Joe eventually got tired of waiting, and so on the November 4th, 2015 episode of NXT, he raised his grievances with Balor in the most Joe way possible, aka he beat the living piss out of him. The Samoan submission machine had been beloved ever since he first arrived in NXT, so fans were certainly displeased to see him lay Finn out. However, he was so bloody good as a heel that everybody quickly got over it. Joe fought Balor at 2 TakeOver events before winning the title off him at a house show of all places. Number 3, Roderick Strong. The Undisputed Era were in quite the pickle at TakeOver New Orleans. Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly were scheduled to defend their tag team titles in a 3-way match, but hit a bit of a speed bump when Fish got injured before the show. Adam Cole could have stepped in, but he was already scheduled to be part of the ladder match for the North American Championship. What to do? Cole took Fish's place in the 3-way, despite the fact that he had been pulverized earlier in the night. It looked like the numbers game had gotten too much for the UE when Pete Dunne hit O'Reilly with his bitter end finisher. However, the Bruiserweight was about to learn a valuable life lesson: never trust anyone called Roderick. Roddy Strong shocked the world when he took out his own partner to hand the Era the win. Strong had finally given in to the group's demands and announced himself as their newest member. This turn was simply a masterstroke. It made perfect sense, it got the company out of a sticky spot, and nobody saw it coming. Least of all, Pete Dunne. Number 2, Kevin Owens. This turn is amazing because it was so effective despite the fact that Kevin Owens had only been a babyface for about an hour or so when it happened. You can tell the story of 2014's Our Evolution in 3 parts. Part 1, Kevin Owens has his NXT debut match against CJ Parker in the opener. Fun fact, Parker, the future Juice Robinson, legitimately broke KO's nose here with a palm strike. Part 2, Sami Zayn defeats Adrian Neville to become NXT champion in a title versus career match. Zayn had been desperate to win the belt, and finally he had done it. Part 3, Owens comes out to celebrate with his real-life best bud, only to turn on him almost immediately. The emotional whiplash of seeing Zayn celebrate his big win and then have his moment stolen from him straight away was unlike anything WWE had done in years. Owens had just gone from a newcomer to the most despised man in all of NXT in the space of just one night. Also, this was the match that introduced the whole copyright logo fake-out spots, paving the way for that technique to be used to great effect by number 1, Tomasso Ciampa. In perhaps the most famous copyright logo busting moment of all time, and the major reason we all have trust issues with WWE nowadays, Tomasso Ciampa became the most hated figure in all of wrestling when he assaulted best friend Johnny Gargano at the end of TakeOver Chicago. The pair, who wrestled under the tag team name DIY, had just fought the Authors of Pain for the black and gold brand's double straps. After giving it everything they had in a brutal ladder match, Gargano and Ciampa came up short and failed to wrest the belts away from their mammoth adversaries. As the two defeated men stood atop the ramp, the show seemingly about to end, something changed in Ciampa's eyes. He swung Johnny around and launched him into the LED board behind them, sparking genuine outrage from the crowd in attendance. Ciampa's turn wasn't just initially heartbreaking, but it also set up about 3 years worth of storylines in this one moment. This was so powerful that NXT were able to capitalize on it 9 months later after Ciampa returned from injury. The blackest of black hearts.